I never thought I could break free from my addiction until I uncovered its spiritual truth. The day started like any other, but it ended in a whirlwind of chaos. I can still recall the electric shock of panic when the truth hit me. I was drowning in everything I thought I knew, everything I thought was real. My heart raced. The voices in my head screamed. They echoed my failures, my fears. The silence felt like a crushing weight, pushing me deeper into despair. Each morning began with the same ritual, a haze clouding my mind, the constant shuffling of shadows in my thoughts, like ghosts haunting me from my past. They laughed at my struggles, taunted my dreams. My fingers trembled as I clutched my phone, refreshing the same social media pages, hoping for a scrap of validation. But nothing could fill the emptiness. I felt invisible yet exposed. I was trapped in a cage of my own making, painted bright but hollow that I tried to reach out. Friends faded away, their smiles turning to pity. My family watched me spiral, their concern barely reaching the walls I built around my heart. "What's wrong?" they asked in desperate tones. "Nothing," I lie, forcing a smile like a mask. But inside, I was screaming. Then came the night that changed everything. I stumbled into an old bookstore, the scent of aging paper wrapped around me, comforting yet fraying at the edges of my sanity. It felt like a tomb, filled with lost knowledge. I ran my fingers along the spines of books, searching, yearning. One caught my eye, a peculiar title that shimmered under the dim light. It whispered promises of secrets uncovered, truths laid bare. I felt drawn, almost possessed. As I flipped through the pages, the words exploded in color, dancing before my eyes. Each sentence unraveled the life I thought I led, revealing deeper connections to the universe. I felt a pull, like invisible threads weaving through my soul, connecting me to something bigger. Purpose. I gasped, tears streaming down my cheeks. Could it be? Could this be my way out? But then, a sudden rush of cold air, and the pages slammed shut. I looked around. The shop was empty, utterly silent. My breath caught in my throat. Had I imagined it all? Was this another trick my mind played on me? Fear clawed at my insides, but I felt a flicker of hope begin to glow. The book was still warm in my hands, pulsing like a heartbeat. My life was on the precipice of transformation. Yet the question loomed, was I ready to leap? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence loomed heavy as I held the book. The words still swirling in my mind, it felt alive, pulsating with the same rhythm as my own anxious heart. Outside, the city flickered neon, but inside the bookstore, time stood still. I closed my eyes, trying to quiet the cacophony in my head, focusing instead on the warmth radiating from the pages. But that warmth was fleeting. The chill in the air crept back, tinged with doubt. Was this truly a path to freedom, or just another flicker of false hope? My stomach twisted as thoughts spiraled. I glanced around, expecting a friendly face or even a stranger's reassuring smile, but the ghostly silence remained unbroken. The shadows lurking in the corners felt suffocating, heavy with judgment. "Just try it," an unexpected voice startled me. I turned to find an elderly man, his frame hunched but his eyes sharp and wise. He must have slipped in unnoticed. "That book holds the power to show you, but only if you're willing to see." "See what?" I managed to whisper, my heart racing anew. "Yourself, my dear. The truth of who you really are." There was a kindness in his voice, an understanding that pierced through the cacophony of my fears. I felt compelled to listen. After a moment's hesitation, I nodded, too curious to turn away. As I clutched the book tighter, the man leaned closer. It can reveal the pain, yes, but it can also illuminate the good, the connections, the love that still exists. Just remember, hope dances in the shadows, waiting for you to notice. His words stitched themselves into my heart, pulling at the frayed edges, but I still didn't know how to step beyond the noise. That night, I clutched the book to my chest, remembering the kindness of a stranger who seemed to see beneath my facade. Days turned into a blur after that encounter. I tried to open the book again, but fear sealed its pages. I felt ironically trapped by the very knowledge I sought. I resumed my daily rituals, escaping into my phone's glowing screen, the emptiness louder than ever. Nothing changed except the worry on my family's faces. They no longer just saw a wayward spirit. They looked at me with haunting concern that dripped into their voices. Have you thought about talking to someone? A professional, maybe? My mother's voice trembled when she asked, and each time it felt like a hand grasping me, holding back my breath, pushing against the walls of my heart. Not now, Mom. I'm fine. I snapped, bursting into anger out of sheer frustration. The moment I spoke, I regretted it. The hurt in her eyes left cuts deeper than any words could cause. Outside, the seasons shifted into shades of gray, an omen reflecting my tangled emotions. But I saw flickers of hope, like candlelight in dark corners. A stranger's smile at the coffee shop, a brief weathered glance from a passing dog walker acknowledging my shared struggle. I learned to cherish those small moments, moments that felt inconsequential, yet were like delicate threads tethering me to the living world. Then, one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, I gathered courage and turned the cover of the book. The words flooded my mind with whispers of potential, but as I delved deeper into the narrative, something shifted. A passage stood out, a sentence that grabbed my heart like a vice. The darkest hour is just before the dawn. Often the greatest transformations come by shedding the old. But before I could absorb it, a sharp knock echoed from my apartment door, jolting me from my reverie. I felt my heart leap into my throat. Who could it possibly be this time? The shadows rushed back, panic blooming. I hesitated, the book slipping from my grasp onto the floor, disrupting the delicate peace I had managed to construct in that moment. Heart pounding, I approached the door, bracing myself for whatever awaited me on the other side. When I swung it open, standing in front of me was a figure I didn't expect to see: my childhood best friend, Emily, wearing an expression of urgency and concern that stole the breath from my lungs. I've been looking for you, she said, her voice shaking. I need to talk. It's important. The weight of her words hovered in the air, thick with unspoken emotions, leaving me with a hollow feeling in my chest. As I glanced back at the book on the floor, the tether to my newfound hope felt like it was slipping away, replaced by the looming uncertainty Emily brought with her. Would this moment be a stepping stone towards the light, or yet another plunge back into darkness? I stood frozen in the doorway, instinct pulling me between two worlds. The paths of potential and despair diverged before me, both unyielding and unforgiving. The urgency in Emily's voice sent ripples of confusion through my thoughts. Her presence ignited a spark of warmth I hadn't felt in ages, but it was immediately eclipsed by the dread of her arrival. I hadn't seen her in months, and in those months, I had locked myself away in a fortress built of shame and fear. Emily, I rasped, words escaping with difficulty. What are you doing here? I need you to trust me. She was trembling, like a leaf caught in a tempest. I could almost feel the weight of the unspoken words pressing against her chest. I stepped aside, surrendering to the moment. Come in. She entered slowly, and I closed the door behind us with a hesitant click. The apartment felt smaller, stifling. Even the air held remnants of the darkness I had battled. I glanced at the book lying on the floor, feeling its pressure against my heart. Things haven't been easy for you, Emily said softly, standing in the center of my cluttered living room. I could see her eyes scanning the space, trying to absorb the remnants of a friendship that had once flourished here. I heard from your mom she's worried. She doesn't need to be, I muttered, embarrassment creeping up my spine. I'm fine. But we both knew that was a lie. The silence that followed felt heavy, punctuated only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. Emily's gaze met mine, and I saw a depth of care that echoed the kindness of the stranger in the bookstore, a different kind of understanding that threatened to unravel my careful facade. "Can we just talk?" she pressed, her voice small but determined. I nodded slowly, unsure of how to navigate the conversation that stretched before us. We settled onto the worn sofa, its fabric bearing witness to countless late-night talks and laughter echoing through shared moments. "How have you been?" Her question was gentle, tentative, as if she were afraid to disturb the fragile balance of my emotions. "Busy," I replied, forcing a casualness that felt unnatural. "Work and stuff." Emily frowned, her brow knitted in concern. "You don't have to pretend with me. I know you, Chloe. I can see the pain in your eyes. Just let it out." I swallowed hard, downplaying the swell of sentiment that threatened to break through. "It's just, everything feels heavy, like I'm carrying weights that have no right being mine. Sometimes I lose track, like I'm drowning in all the noise." As the words spilled out, I felt the dam start to crack, unearthing the buried truths. I tried to find my way back. I thought that maybe this book would help, but I'm scared of what it might reveal. Her gaze softened, and anger dissipated into understanding. She reached for my hand and squeezed it, anchoring me amidst the storm. "You don't need to carry everything alone. You're not broken, but you have to open that door of vulnerability, you know? There's strength in sharing your burdens." Her words felt like a quiet invitation, coaxing me towards the light I had been denying myself. We sat there, hands clasped, pulling me out of spirals of self-doubt momentarily. Yet a part of me hesitated, still clinging tightly to the fear of losing my grip on control. "What if I'm too far gone?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What if I reveal too much and can never go back?" She leaned closer, her eyes fierce yet warm. "Then we find a way to move forward together. But you have to take the first step. It starts with trust." I wanted to believe her, but the shadows loomed, stubborn and persistent. In that moment, I felt a shiver race down my spine, the memory of the book's passage flashing through my mind. "The darkest hour is just before the dawn." Suddenly, there was a loud crash outside the window, snapping us out of our intimate moment. I shot up, glancing fearfully past the glass. A commotion erupted on the street, voices raised high in alarm. "Did you hear that?" Emily stood beside me, her expression shifting from concern to alarm. "I think we should check," I suggested hesitantly, instinctively moving towards the curtain. But as I pulled it back, my breath caught in my throat at the sight unfolding before me. A small crowd gathered, faces painted with worry. A figure lay on the ground, surrounded by chaos, and through the clustered anxiety punched in whispers and cries. Everything about the scene felt eerily familiar. "Please," an unfamiliar voice cried out. "Someone call for help." It felt like a tide rushing in, threatening to engulf my realization the voice belonged to someone in my past. Someone who had extended kindness to me when I needed it most. "Chloe, we need to help," Emily urged, urgency shaking her words. But what if it was too late? As I stood there torn, the weight of everything I had been avoiding bore down on me. Shadows danced just out of sight, taunting me with fear. What was this truth that lay waiting beyond the door? In that moment, change hung in the air, and the choice lay before me: step into the chaos entwined in compassion, or recede back into the safety of silence and fear. With heart racing, I turned towards Emily, searching for courage in her eyes as my world swirled around me, and the shout from the past echoed in my ears. The world outside turned into a canvas of chaos, each face etched with a mix of fear and urgency. I could hear Emily's breath beside me, quickening as she took in the scene, but my own heart thudded with a heavy thrum of indecision. Inside me, a roiling storm brewed, the pull of the past gnawing at my composure. Each cry from the street felt like a jagged reminder of my own struggles, a mirror reflecting the fear I had known so intimately. What if I can't go back? I breathed, still positioned by the curtain. My fingers trembled against the fabric, torn between the draw of those desperate cries and the sanctuary of the walls I had built to cage my uncertainties. Emily, sensing my hesitation, stepped closer. Chloe, she implored softly, staying behind won't change what you're feeling inside. Sometimes, it's the action we take in the face of fear that leads us to healing. Her words sank in, urging me to peel back layers of protection I had so carefully constructed. I remembered that night in the bookstore, surrounded by disarray but held together by a shared understanding. I thought of the stranger whose kindness had sparked a flicker of hope in me, and it tightened a knot in my chest as clarity washed over me. I had a chance, no, an obligation to step into this moment, to reclaim that ember of connection that had once guided me. Taking a deep breath, I threw open the curtain and stepped into the evening light. Emily followed closely, her presence a consolation against the chaos that swirled outside. The crowd parted as we approached, revealing a young man crumpled on the pavement, his face pale and contorted with pain. "Help, please!" The anguished voice called again, a voice I recognized. My heart dropped as I rushed forward and caught a glimpse of the scruffy hair and familiar blue hoodie that clung to him like a ghost from my past. "Ryan," I gasped, recognition colliding with disbelief. He was one of those fleeting connections from the years I had been lost in my addiction, a soul I had dragged along and then pushed away when the shadows had gotten too heavy. Could this truly be the moment where my past reached out to me again? Emily knelt beside me. "What do we do?" she whispered, scanning the growing crowd, her eyes a mix of fear and determination. "Help him up," I implored, instinctively reaching towards Ryan, who was gasping on the ground. "We can't just stand by." As if sensing our urgency, Ryan's eyes flickered open, and he met my gaze, a whirlpool of unspoken emotions swirling between us. "Chloe?" he croaked, pain escalating the rawness of his voice. "I didn't think you'd come." My throat constricted like a vice, and though I longed to speak, the weight of regret and nostalgia lodged there like a stone. "I'm here," I managed, forcing the words through a constricted heart. "Just hang on. Help is on the way." "Emily, can you call for an ambulance?" With a nod, she immediately fumbled for her phone, stepping back to make the call. Meanwhile, I knelt beside Ryan, desperate to keep him engaged, to stave off the oblivion darkness loomed over him. "Chloe," he mumbled, his voice slurring. "I'm sorry about everything." "It's okay," I whispered, covering his hand with mine, trying to anchor him to this moment. "You're going to be okay. We'll get through this together." But beneath the veneer of hope hung an insidious doubt, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. I flashed back to my own battles, the selfishness that had driven us apart, the nights filled with despair that I had so desperately wanted to hide from. "You shouldn't have gone through this alone," I murmured, resisting the tears that pooled in my eyes. "You should have reached out." His gaze drifted, somewhere far away, lost relative to the world crumbling around us. "No one knew how dark it got," he stuttered, and within that moment, I felt the collective weight of unshared burdens hovering over both of us. It was an uninvited reminder that the silence had harmed us just as much as the chaos that now surrounded us. Emily returned, her face pale but composed. "They're on their way," she said. "But they'll need to know what happened." "Do you think he was in an accident or something worse?" I interrupted, blinking against the sting of regret. My fingers traced over Ryan's skin, and I sensed a flicker of light fighting through the darkness. "Just hold on, Ryan. You're not alone anymore. Just stay with me." His eyes rolled, caught somewhere between consciousness and surrender, and it was in that moment, the crux of our entwined paths, that I finally understood the full breadth of what I had to confront. My fear had kept me paralyzed, unable to share my circumstances, my vulnerabilities. But now, standing on the cusp of this reality, I felt the flickers of compassion stirring within me, illuminating the corners of my spirit I thought I had cloaked forever. A siren wailed in the distance, but all I could focus on was the chaos of my heartbeats pounding in harmony with the ache of lost time, lost connections. For every ounce of fear, there was also the promise of hope, the possibility of healing not just for Ryan, but for myself. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the air like glass shattering, a sound that clawed at both of us. The urgency thickening around our shared pain, the shadows flickering even closer, threatening to break through. It was a moment just enough time for me to realize that this path undoubtedly led us to the truth of our intertwined fates. Ryan's breath hitched, and as I looked into the wild, swirling depths of his eyes, I knew without a shadow of doubt that our stories were far from over. The ambulance lights flickered closer, illuminating our shared darkness. And as hope battled despair, another cry went out this time. It wasn't from the street, but echoed from the very core of my being. This was just the beginning, the seed of a new journey, and I was terrified but ready to embrace it all: the healing, the uncertainty, the light that could finally break through. I could hardly hear anything over the thundering pulse in my ears as I brushed my fingers over Ryan's skin, desperately trying to convince him to keep fighting. The sirens drew closer, but my mind wandered to the past, to the way we had both become lost in the spiral of despair that addiction carved within us. I had thought I could outrun my demons, but they lurked in the shadows, tainting every moment with regret. "Chloe," Ryan murmured, more than a question than a statement. I didn't think anyone would care. His voice was weak, and with every breath he took, the weight of our intertwining history crashed around me, a reminder not just of where we had been, but of all that lay ahead if we could somehow find our way back to the light. "Of course I care," I whispered fiercely, tightening my grip on his hand. "I'm here now, and I won't leave you again." It felt like a promise, and I knew it wasn't just for him but also for myself. I needed this moment to fuel the fire I had thought was long extinguished within me. But as urgency mounted with each passing second, panic threatened to swallow me whole. What if I couldn't help him? What if, in my attempt to reconnect with my own past, I only dragged us both further into the abyss? Guilt washed over me like a tide, receding only to push me under again. I could feel Emily's gaze on us, a blend of sympathy and worry, and I wished I could tell her how powerful this moment felt: the crushing weight of the past and the flickering, fragile flame of hope battling against it. Suddenly, through the chaos, I heard the soft, steady rhythm of a drumming rain begin to fall, a delicate counterpoint to the chaos that reigned around us. The raindrops became a balm, calming the storm inside. As I closed my eyes, I could almost hear the whispers of unspoken words between us, urging us to grapple with our truth, to confront the hurt we both carried. Time twisted and elongated, and through the shadows, I could see Emily's silhouette as she rested a hand on my shoulder. "Chloe, they're here," she spoke, her voice steady, a lifeline amidst the uncertainty. The ambulance pulled up, a beacon of urgency. Paramedics flooded towards us, their professionalism a stark contrast to the raw emotional landscape we were navigating. But as they advanced, I felt a crack in the armor I had pieced together over years of concealing myself, this facade breathing under the weight of my unprocessed feelings. "Is he stable?" one of the paramedics asked as they knelt beside Ryan, their hands working with practiced efficiency. I felt a jolt of vulnerability, the raw ache of questioning whether I had done enough, whether I had truly been present for him. "I think so," I stammered, my voice faltering. He was unconscious, but I kept him talking. The weight of my responsibility lay heavy in the air. "Yes, my friend," I added, and even as I said it, I could feel the truth echoing within me. He wasn't just a friend. He was a part of my history, a tangled thread that I was afraid to cut. Ryan blinked, struggling between consciousness and the void. One of the medics caught my gaze, their eyes conveying a calm perspective amidst the tempest. "You did well to stay with him. We'll take it from here." Shaking, I squeezed Ryan's hand one last time before they gently hoisted him onto the stretcher. The reality of letting go hitting me hard. The world felt strangely muted as the sirens blared back to life, drawing attention away from our fragile moment. Suddenly, I realized that for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I had opened a door to my past, one I had fought to keep shut. But that door, as heavy as it was, might also lead to healing in ways I couldn't yet grasp. As Emily and I climbed into the ambulance, surrounded by the sterile smells and the urgent voices of first responders, an unexpected warmth enveloped me. I thought of the connection that had just sparked between Ryan and me, raw and unfiltered, reminding me that vulnerability sometimes served as the path to salvation. The motion of the ambulance began to lull me into an unexpected calm, the rhythm of the sirens mirroring my own racing heart. I stole a glance at Emily, who wore an expression of determination, her eyes holding an unspoken vow. We were in this together. But as we turned a corner, fate threw a wrench into the serene groove I had begun to settle into. The ambulance jolted violently, and I caught sight of a bearded man standing by the road, wild eyes, frantic gesticulation, unmistakably out of place. He was yelling at the driver, and as I tried to understand what was happening, the hairs on the back of my neck prickled. "No, you can't take him," he screamed, a primal energy erupting from him like a force of nature. And in that moment, I realized that I recognized his voice. It was the last person I imagined I'd encounter here. Jimmy. "Ryan," I shrieked, panic clawing at my throat. "What is he doing?" Emily and I exchanged horrified glances as the ambulance, lurching to a stop, seemed to freeze time itself. The connection I thought I'd nurtured was shattered, leaving only the possibility of more chaos ahead. I gripped Emily's hand tightly, our shared resolve wavering as the shadows from our past began to encroach on this fragile moment, threatening once again to pull us apart as the ambient noise of the world melted into silence, and the realization of Ryan's fragile fate loomed before me. I felt the ground beneath my feet shifting once more. This was far from over. The ambulance's interior transformed into a claustrophobic arena, where fear clashed with desperation. Jimmy's wild eyes bore into me as if he could see right through to my deepest regrets. My heart raced. How did he know? How could he possibly be in this moment, this place, where I thought I had a tight grip on the past? "Chloe." Jimmy's voice sliced through the stillness, frantic and unyielding. "You can't let them take him." "Yes, not ready. Not yet." His face flushed with a mixture of anguish and determination, a storm of emotions swirling behind his eyes. My memories surged back, days spent in a haze, our hearts intertwined in the ruins of our addictions, each one of us too deep in despair to pull the other out. Was this a rescue or another form of chaos? My throat tightened as I processed the implications of his presence. "Ryan needs help, Jimmy," I shot back, every ounce of my being pleading for clarity despite the combativeness of my heart. "We can't go back to that, to them." The them echoed heavily in my mind, the shadows of our past life, a labyrinth of mistakes and pain. "Help?" he spat. "You call this help? They're just going to put him in a box and abandon him. They'll just treat him like another statistic." The raw vulnerability of his words lingered in the air, resonating somewhere deep within me. I felt the truth in his fear even while it tore at my nerves like a fraying rope. Emily turned towards me, uncertainty flickering across her face, asking with her eyes for guidance, and maybe for a glimmer of hope that this spiraling descent could halt, at least for a moment. The sirens outside wailed, their chorus of hurt resonating with my confusion. A sudden wave of determination swept over me. "We can't just give up. Yes, in there fighting. I can't let you take that away from him or me." My declaration barely gave voice to the whirlwind of emotions, but it surged out of me like a primal scream. Jimmy's features softened, shadows merging with the fear that etched his face. "You don't know what you're asking, Chloe. What you're about to unleash." His desperate vulnerability clashed with the strength of his convictions. It was the duality I'd come to know so well in both him and Ryan. "Maybe that's the point," I whispered, my voice trembling but resolute. "Maybe we need to face it. This can't be our ending." My grip tightened on Emily's hand, her warmth anchoring me. In this critical moment, I understood that I couldn't fight this battle alone, and the journey back towards hope was something we had to embrace together. But a sharp sound broke through the wail of sirens riding high, and a sudden jolt of the ambulance propelled us forward. I watched, helpless, as the paramedics exchanged glances filled with apprehension, resolutely continuing their tasks. They weren't afraid of Jimmy like I was. They were professionals grounded in reality. As I fitfully turned back to Ryan, I noticed his skin paler than before, the lines of pain etched deeper on his features as he drifted closer to unconsciousness. "Ryan," I shouted, urgency cracking my voice. "Please, don't let them take you." For an agonizing moment, everything hung in the air, the breaths, the shouts, the cascade of memories swirling around us, loud and unbearable. We had fought so long against our own demons, only to be confronted with the very reality we had tried to eradicate. The thought terrified me more than surrendering to the darkness. "Do you trust me?" I heard myself ask, reaching for Ryan's hand one last time. Emerging from the haze of longing and despair that wrestled violently within me, the faintest flicker of hope ignited somewhere in the back of my mind. The answer seemed lost in the clutches of fate, but the possibility lingered, tantalizingly transformative. Suddenly, the weight of decisions hung heavily in the air, but in that moment, a revelation shifted the atmosphere entirely. I could see it, the flicker of hesitance mirrored in Jimmy's eyes, a brief crack revealing something softer beneath. Was it remorse? Regret? "Chloe," he started, his tone adapting a shift that felt monumental yet precarious. "Maybe we need to go back to therapy, find that place we need." The gravity of his words unfurled gently, like morning light spilling into darkness. But before I could respond, looming dread cloaked the moment. The paramedics exchanged shouts that tore my heart, their attention entirely on Ryan, their voices rising in urgency. "He is crashing. We need to stabilize him now," I gasped, eyes widening as panic surged uncontrollably through me. My thoughts spiraled, tethered to a single, heart-stopping question. What if I had failed him once more? But through the chaos, a flicker of understanding ignited. If surrendering meant falling back into darkness, then perhaps trusting again was the only path forward. My determination solidified like steel, mingling with the warmth of the moment as I turned once again to Jimmy. "Help me save him," I pleaded, aiming for his heart. But before he could respond, the ambulance jolted violently once more, the driver struggling against what felt like sheer chaos. And just then, the lights went out, the sirens fading behind an all-encompassing darkness, the air thick with uncertainty. A blur of shadows danced around me, and as the rest of the world vanished, I clung to the fragile thread of hope that somehow, against all odds, we could break free from this spiral of addiction and pain. But as the unknown loomed ahead, a new, ominous realization settled within me, bringing forth the terrifying truth. Whether we wanted to or not, the past was not through with us yet. The darkness wrapped around me as a heavy fog, dulling my senses, sending my heart racing into panic. It pressed down on my chest, trapping every breath, while my mind struggled to grasp the situation. I had learned to fight against the weight of despair, but the loss of control felt like standing atop a cliff, teetering on the edge of an abyss. "Chloe." Jimmy's voice cut through the haze, raw desperation choking his words. "We need to get out of here. They're not going to save him. They'll just stop," I gasped, the word exploding from my lips like a firework breaking the silence. "We have to trust them. Yes, fighting. We can't turn against each other, please." The pleading in my voice felt futile, but I had to try. His eyes trembled with a mixture of frustration and fear. "You don't even see it, do you? The system isn't a savior. It's a trap." His intensity nearly cracked me open, forcing me to confront what lay dormant inside. Echoes of our shared struggles hummed in the back of my mind. Therapy, relapses, vows made in half-light. A harsh order from one of the paramedics jolted me further into reality. A flashlight flicked on, illuminating Ryan's face, pale and drawn, as he fought against the grasp of oblivion. "He is not responsive. Get the epinephrine," the voice commanded, urgency tinging the air with a palpable intensity. My heart raced faster than I thought possible. "Ryan, please, stay with me," I cried, squeezing his hand, praying he could feel the warmth of connection, the weight of my promises. But he remained still, a fragile shell whisked away by waves of uncertainty. Jimmy's breaths came in a hurried cadence, a shared rhythm born from years of living on the edge. "They're going to give him drugs. Do you really think he needs that? We're better off without this madness." His voice cracked, but buried within was a shred of worry I understood all too well. "Then what do you suggest?" I shot back, desperate for clarity amid the chaos. "Do we leave him here to drown in silence? How can you say that when you know what it feels like?" For a moment, the ambulance's noise faded into a threatening void, Jimmy's ferocity warring with the kindness buried in despair. "I don't want him to become one of them," he whispered, his voice breaking. I don't want you to lose him like I lost everything. The vulnerability in his confession opened a door I had hoped would stay shut. Memories of the two of us washed over me like a tide, each of them wrapped in laughter and sorrow, the shared joy of small victories and the crushing weight of our losses. Jimmy, I said softly, we can't let that happen again. We can't go back. We need to stand up, fight together. Behind us, the din of panic grew louder, screams mingling with the whir of machines. The heaviness of the atmosphere stifled my thoughts as the paramedics' movements became frantic. We're losing him. They stepped closer, preparing instruments that glowed ominously under the harsh light. My heart twisted at the sight. Every object felt like a reminder of our consequences and failures. And then, in a stroke of strange irony, a voice cut through the tension like a summer breeze pulling apart thunderclouds. Give him a chance, just like we were given. It was Emily. In that moment, I realized her presence had shifted somehow, from being the bystander to the strength I never knew she could hold. Guilt has its hold over us, but hope still matters. We can't take the easy route. I turned to her, her eyes holding a fierce determination, reminding me that small embers of hope can burn even the strongest despair. We're alongside you, Chloe. Her voice rang with unexpected courage. The kindness in that moment felt like fuel to a fading flame. The paramedics were giving commands, a chorus of urgent cooperation, and I could see them acting as their training kicked in. I could feel the collective effort blending into something meaningful, and in that mix, the all-consuming fear ebbed ever so slightly. Chloe, please. Jimmy's voice dipped into something too vulnerable. What if we don't ever break free? Then we look for every hand that reaches out, every soul that wants to fight. That's how we heal. We can find each other in this mess. Please, just trust me. The words burst forth in a single breath, trembling with hope and desperation. The moment hung thick in the air, and then, opting for all invulnerability, I turned back to Ryan, feeling the warmth of his hand as I squeezed it harder. I believe in you. Fight for us. But as the words escaped my lips, an icy hand gripped my heart as I realized I had been praying that I could believe it, too. And then, with a final surge, the ambulance's lights flickered ominously as they plunged deeper into darkness. The sound of machinery crumbled beneath the weight of uncertainty, and in those agonizing moments, I braced for the silence that followed. Is this the end? Jimmy muttered, the tension cracking him like fragile glass. No, I whispered to the nothingness around us. My heart ached under the weight of the truth. I was terrified to face the inevitability of our lives, yet somehow, it felt like a catalyst. We had slipped into the unknown, but I dared to weave a path from that darkness. And then, in the encroaching stillness, as despair spiraled deeper, I made a vow, a promise to chase the fragments of light despite the ever-looming shadows, hoping that perhaps, one day, we'd find our way back to each other. But then, through the semi-conscious haze, I heard the rattle of breaths, a fate rearing its head, and realization clawed at my insides. Something had shifted in Ryan, a new fragility, and just as I opened my mouth to call for help, a voice broke free in the darkness, echoing back my deepest fears. Chloe, I found the truth about you and me. The declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap, shattering the expectations I had held so tightly. Amid the chaos of the ambulance, an unnerving stillness enveloped me, wrapping secrets between us that had not yet been spoken. Ryan's voice, so faint yet charged with urgency, cut through the thickness of my fear, and my heart raced with equal parts dread and curiosity. What do you mean? I finally managed to whisper, my grip on his hand tightening as if it could anchor us against the growing storm. In that moment, the clamor of voices and machines faded into the background, leaving only his breath, uneven but alive, mingling with the electrical hum of our fragile connection. His eyes drifted to mine, and within them flickered the remnants of hope mixed with deep sorrow. Chloe, I can feel something. The words were strained, but the intent resonated. All this time I thought I was alone in my darkness, but what if you're more tied to my struggle than I realized? The paramedics continued their frantic efforts, but I felt as if we were encased in a fragile bubble, Only we existed in that moment. Ryan, please don't say that right now. Focus. Let us talk about this later, I urged, scared of what this revelation could mean, yet unwilling to dismiss it, as if accepting it might unearth dark memories best left buried. But he swallowed hard, determination illuminating his features. No, listen to me. I've seen the truth, the kind of truth that fuels addiction. It's like a parasite. It thrives in the void of connection, in the silence of our pain. We've been using each other's battles to shield ourselves from the reality of our own. His voice trembled under the weight of his admission, but within it, I sensed a shift. Don't do this, Ryan, I pleaded, desperate to keep him tethered to the present, to the fight that lay directly in front of us. We need you to live. Just hold on. But what if living means acknowledging that we're lost? He whispered, his eyes tearing from mine as they wandered past my shoulder. What if the thing that binds us is also imprisoning us? The paramedics jolted into action, applying pressure to his chest, and I could see the lines of pain etched deeper across Ryan's face. I fought back tears, struggling to focus. This isn't the end, I shouted, more to myself than anyone else. It can't be. Not like this. Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by the warmth of a hand on my shoulder. It was Emily, steady and calm, her presence a lifeline amid the whirlwind of distress. You have to believe in him, Chloe. We all want to break free, but first we must face the truth. Look at him, he's already battling. I turned back to Ryan, desperation clawing at me. The depth of my connection with him felt like a lifeline and a chain, and as realization washed over me, I started to understand. The truth, fragmented and chaotic, could be our salvation, yet it stung with the bitterness of clarity. You're right, I whispered, acknowledging the thread of addiction woven within our shared past, how our need for each other had become a crutch as much as a sanctuary, binding us together in an unhealthy dance of dependency. For a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of resilience behind the pain in Ryan's eyes. We can discover something new together, Chloe. If we embrace our truths, perhaps we can forge a new path. His voice was stronger now, amidst the breaths of the paramedics and the pounding rush of adrenaline. And then, just as the weight of potential redemption enveloped us, a sudden jolt surged through the ambulance, the sirens wailing louder, harmonizing with my heartbeat. The chaotic voices around us fell into silence as my attention snapped back completely to Ryan. Please, fight for us. I half sobbed, half prayed, squeezing his hand as if every ounce of my spirit could transfer strength to him. Yet at that moment of vulnerability, the urgency of the situation crashed in around me. The monitor's beeping grew erratic, and a chilling fear crawled up my spine. We're losing him, one of the paramedics shouted, breaking the fragile hope that had begun to form between us. Suddenly, Ryan's eyes widened, the light within them dimming, and my breath caught in my throat. In those precious seconds before the storm of panic crashed over us again, I saw something flicker behind his gaze and understanding, a deep-rooted fear of what was yet to come. Chloe, he began, but before he could finish, his breath faltered, body tensing against the weight of his struggles. The world shrank to just the two of us, as I clung to him, unwilling to let go. Stay with me, Ryan, please, I cried out in desperation, grasping onto the final threads of faith that stitched our fates together. We have so much to uncover. Don't leave me now. But as his eyes fluttered closed, and the paramedics intensified their efforts, I struggled against the rising tide of despair clawing at my heart. And in that overwhelming moment, I realized the truth was not just scattered pieces of our history, but a revelation that could sever the ties that bound us both, a haunting reminder that breaking free could mean confronting the agony we had both shrouded in silence for far too long. As the world plunged once more into chaos, I steeled myself for the battle ahead, my heart racing with newfound resolve. If Ryan could discover this truth, so could I. But at the base of that promise lay the fear that maybe some truths were never meant to be uncovered, and that not all paths taken lead to redemption. With trembling hands, I cupped Ryan's face and whispered, remember us. Whatever the truth is, we have to face it together. Please fight back. And in that room filled with fading echoes of chaos, The last haunting words I heard from him were buried deep within my thoughts. But what if I'm the one who holds you back? The shrill beeping of the heart monitor had faded into a haunting chorus, punctuated only by the frantic voices of the paramedics. I felt like a ghost hovering beside Ryan, caught in a realm where time unraveled, and the air heavy with unspoken truths. The sterile scent of antiseptic surrounded me, mingling with the faint whiff of fear that lingered like a shadow. "Ryan," I cried, my voice trembling. "Just hold on. Please." Each breath I took echoed his struggle, amplifying the panic that rose within me. What if I was losing the one person who understood me, even in my darkest moments? In the chaos, I caught Emily's eye from across the ambulance, her face a mask of concern yet steadied by a well of resilience. She stepped closer, her voice low, a lifeline in a tide of uncertainty. "Chloe, sometimes love means letting go. But it doesn't mean forgetting." Letting go? The thought sliced through me as fresh waves of despair washed over. How could I even consider that when the very foundation of my heart rested in Ryan's hands? His life was a tapestry woven with my own, and every thread of hope felt like it was unraveling before my eyes. In a sudden burst of movement, the paramedics worked in unison, but their frantic efforts felt like a fight against a relentless tide. "We're losing him," one exclaimed, his voice laced with urgency that hit me like a physical blow. I gripped Ryan's hand tighter, shaking my head violently, as if my defiance could sway fate itself. "No, don't say that." A realization washed over me. No matter how much I wished otherwise, time was slipping away. I needed to confront the truth Emily hinted at, a truth that could shatter us both. What if embracing Ryan's battles meant plunging into a darkness I wasn't ready to face? Just as despair crested, I remembered our whispered conversations on long nights, on struggles shared under dim streetlights, their faint glow barely illuminating the contours of our fractured souls. What if those isolating shadows could morph into beacons instead? If we scraped back the layers of our pain, if we allowed the bravery of vulnerability to dawn, could it unravel the hold of our addiction? "Ryan," I breathed, leaning closer, desperate to bridge the chasm that seemed to stretch between us. "I can't do this without you. I want to. Please, fight. We will find a way to navigate through this together." My heart ached with each word as I drew strength from the depths of our connection. A flicker ignited in his eyes, a moment suspended in time when it appeared that he might fight, just for a heartbeat longer. "Chloe," he breathed, the struggle manifesting in the twitch of his facial muscles. There was something more he wished to say, something tethered between our shared fears and memories, but it eluded him, slipping further away with each passing second. Then, the paramedics shifted, voices rising as they resumed the desperate chase against time. The room pulsed with fear and urgency, and for a brief moment, I lost myself in the swell of voices surrounding us. But then, a fleeting warmth brushed against my palm. Ryan's fingers twitched slightly, almost imperceptibly, but it sent a surge of hope rushing through me. "Stay with me," I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. "You are not alone. We are not alone." I could feel Emily's steady presence beside me, a shadow tethered to my storm, and at that moment, I realized the quiet power of connection, how fragile yet crucial it was amid turmoil. As I searched Ryan's gaze for a sign of life, my mind flashed to uncharted moments of joy, the laughter shared during simple evenings, the sweet ease of silence that wasn't fraught with tension. I knew, instinctively, that those memories were laced with truths we had buried, shadows creeping closer as the light faded between us. And yet, buried amid the pain lay hope, fragile, glimmering, waiting to be reclaimed. But just as his eyelids fluttered, sending a spark of warmth coursing between us, the medical equipment around us suddenly howled with alarm. "We need to move," a paramedic barked, the sense of impending crisis unfolding like a dark cloud overhead. I saw Ryan's expression falter, a flash of awareness breaking through his pain. "Chloe," he began again, but the frenzied energy in the ambulance swelled around us, drowning out his words. The frantic action ensued, and I grew frantic, pulling at him, unwilling to lose the thread of connection we had fought so hard to keep. In a whirlwind of chaos, my world narrowed. I felt fiercely protective of the fleeting moments and the souls intertwined between our battles, the addictions that had shadowed us, yet had forged a bond so unique. The weight of our shared truths pressed upon me, begging to be illuminated, yet terrifying in its risk. As the paramedics wheeled him away, emergency lights flashing in a cacophony of blue and red, a muted reality set in. I was left standing alone amid the swirling storm, clutching the remnants of hope and fear that clawed at my heart. What if the truths we sought to uncover would carve a path toward healing or heartbreak? Just as I turned toward Emily in desperation for clarity, as if she held the answers to a puzzle I feared to face, a sudden realization struck me, cold as a winter breeze. Ryan's battle might not be the only one. As I stumbled backward, my heart racing, I began to question what darker truth lay within me, and if ripping off the veils of our past would expose even harsher realities. The ambulance doors swung shut, sealing Ryan away from sight, and I stood frozen, caught between the edges of what lay ahead, the precipice of revelation hanging like a fragile thread. A sizable choice loomed above me, and with it the chilling prospect that maybe, just maybe, the spirit of addiction didn't just bind us. It haunted us both. And perhaps the greatest truths had yet to unveil themselves, spiraling deeper than I was ready to confront. But my instincts screamed for the journey to begin, and yet, fear gripped my heart. Was I ready to break away from all I had known? As my thoughts tangled in uncertainty, I knew one thing above all else. The battle for both Ryan and myself had only just begun. The world around me felt unsteady, a tumult of sirens and whispered fears as I exited the ambulance. I watched my thoughts swirl, grappling for clarity as the emergency technician ushered me toward a waiting room. Ryan was being wheeled away, each second feeling like a helpless eternity. My heart was a wild storm, echoing back the weight of realization his battle was mine, and the ties that bound us were stronger than the fear that threatened to tear us apart. As I sat in the waiting room, the sterile smell of antiseptics swirled thick in the air. I wrapped my arms around myself, the weight of everything pressing on my shoulders. I could feel Emily's presence beside me, her silence a gentle reminder of the vulnerability that beckoned. "Chloe," she finally broke through, her voice soft but insistent. "What truth are we avoiding?" The question hung heavy in the air, shadowed with uncertainty, and I felt my chest tighten. "I don't know," I whispered. "I thought I understood. I thought I was ready to face my darkness. But what if facing it means looking at the parts of me I've carefully tucked away?" "Exactly," Emily said, her tone steady. "What if all this pain is what keeps us from moving forward? What will it take to break free, not just for Ryan but for you too?" I hesitated, the echoes of our whispered moments lingering, our fears, our shared regrets, the very addictions that had entangled us. Had any of it ever truly healed? With a deep breath, I searched my heart for answers. It's all so intertwined. Emily, I've wrapped myself in my scars, convinced they defined my worth. I can't just strip them away without feeling exposed and scared. Yet without them, who am I? The honesty threatened to unravel the strings of doubt inside me, each admission a tremor that pulled at the very foundation of my existence. The truth felt like a final confrontation, a push past the discomfort of my fears into the terrifying unknown. With Emily's gaze urging me to dive deeper, I began to connect the threads. I've seen what addiction does to people, how it twists them into shadows of who they once were. It wrung me dry, Emily. I spent so much time buried in intoxication, trying to run from the reality of pain, but I'm tired now. I want to forgive myself. I was wrong to push away connections, to suffocate relationships, especially with Ryan. Emily's eyes glistened, a silent understanding blossoming between us. And maybe embracing that vulnerability is exactly what you need. Sometimes allowing ourselves to be seen is the most radical act of love we can offer. It's the very thing that can heal us. The words radiated like light breaking through a dense fog. Could I dare to believe that the very act of being seen, of allowing myself to be vulnerable, was the key to freedom? Felt intoxicating and terrifying all at once. But what if it leads me back to pain? And what if that pain is the bridge to healing? Emily challenged, her voice steady and unyielding. The light you feared could finally illuminate the dark passageways you've wandered for so long. Then, in that moment, I remembered those nights spent sleepless, hearts heavy with regrets shared between breaths. I recalled the laughter, the joy tucked within small moments of connection. If my past held pain, it also glimmered with the possibility of love and acceptance, the kind I had long denied myself. A sudden commotion brought me back to reality, and just then, a doctor emerged from the hallway, his face a mixture of concern and relief. "Chloe?" he called out, his gaze piercing me through a mess of anxiety. My heart raced as I stood to face him, uncertainty swirling rapidly in my chest. "Yes, Ryan is stable for now, but we need to monitor him closely. He is awake and aware, but it'll take time for him to recover. I would like to speak with you about his treatment going forward." Hope flickered in my chest, a balm against the storm that had raged within. "Can I see him?" "Of course, but only for a few minutes." "Follow me," he urged, beckoning me to enter the sterile confines of the hospital corridor. As I stepped inside, the fluorescent lights hummed above, stark and unfamiliar, but fear began to lessen its hold. The medical team worked efficiently, and when I reached Ryan's room, a wave of emotion crashed over me, the joy of knowing he was alive, mixed with an undeniable fear of what lay ahead. He lay on the bed, eyes half closed but flickering with something fierce, a spark of determination that anchored my own. I hesitated at the door, my heart pounding louder than the machines that monitored him. "Chloe?" he rasped, and even in his weakened state, his voice was a tether to all ID battled. "Ryan," I stepped closer, allowing myself to truly see him, the vulnerability, the rawness. "I'm here." "Why?" he breathed, confusion flickering within the depths of his eyes. "After everything I put you through, why would you come back?" I felt a lump form in my throat, but I willed it down, because I've learned it's about more than just fighting our battles alone. It's about facing the truth together. I've been scared of losing you, scared of what it means to forgive, to love without conditions. He looked at me, blinking slowly. "But what if I can't fight anymore?" "Then I will be here to fight for you," I replied resolutely, feeling the burden of my own fears easing. "And we will find a way to face whatever comes next, out there or within. But I need you to trust that redemption is outside this darkness." A moment lingered between us, a silent pact forged from our shared vulnerability, weaving a connection fresh with the promise of potential. But beyond that, it was in that fleeting exchange of breaths that I saw it, the surrender to deeper truths we had spent so long avoiding. I held his gaze as it deepened into a newfound awareness, and there was a flicker of recognition between us, echoing across all the battles we had fought. "Chloe," he whispered, as if fearlessly unveiling the depths of his heart. "I made mistakes, Ryan." I interrupted softly. "We all have. But it's not about the mistakes anymore. It's about how we choose to face them, together." "I thank you," he murmured, the weight of gratitude unchanged through the tenderness of our reunion. And for the first time, I saw not just the broken fragments of the past but a future, a road we could journey through the pain and into the possibility of renewal. We could carve a path where shame wouldn't stack like bricks against our hearts but encourage us to build something beautiful. As I squeezed his hand, the tether we forged shimmered brighter with purpose. In those fleeting minutes before the realities of recovery would fully envelope us, we embraced the powerful truth we were not just fighting a battle with addiction. We were uncovering the strength within to forgive, to love, and to face the future unafraid. Outside the room, I noticed Emily waiting, a soft smile gracing her lips, a reflection of the light breaking through my shadows. She had believed in me when I had lost sight of the truth that healing begins with connection, not isolation. And in that moment, it all became clear. Sometimes, it isn't just about finding your way out of darkness. It's about stepping into the light armed with the bravest weapon of all, our willingness to embrace the journey and the countless hands that help guide us through. The final truth we both realized was not in defeat but in acceptance. For the real reciprocal power dwells in knowing that in the arms of vulnerability, we discover our most authentic selves. As long as we're together, Ryan, we can handle anything, I said softly, finally realizing that my heart was no longer afraid to face the truth. Thus, I embraced the possibilities waiting on the horizon, accepting the unfolding layers of life, knowing that in both darkness and light, every moment is an invitation to live, to love, to heal. The door to our new beginning was wide open, and hand in hand, we would learn to walk through it, reclaiming our lives, one brave step at a time.